Welcome to episode 3 of Nexus Now, a Nexus gaming series podcast, bringing you news, stories, and personalities from the NGS community, as well as the greater heroes of the Storm universe. I am one of your hosts, Professor Bobo, and as usual, I am joined with the rest of the triumvirate here, Ghost Dunk and Murda. Fellas?
Howdy ho!
What up, Bobo? Hey, how you doing there, Ghost Dunk?
I am doing pretty good. I'm feeling a little weird today.
Right on, brother. Nexus Now would not be here if it were not for the support of our patrons. A thank you to all of NGS supporters. And if you would like to join our patrons, go to patreon.com/nexusgaming-series.
So on our last podcast, number 2, you guys tuned in and you caught the Nexus Gaming Series Season 4 Grand Finals recap. We also had a bit of a mid-season Brawl HGC follow-up, and we ended with our first podcast interview. It was Cavalier Guest joining the crew here on Nexus Now. Tonight, we're going to be talking a little bit about heroes and going over the latest patch notes where Azmodan and Raynor got some solid reworks. And later on, you will get a very special interview with the one and only Gillyweed.
Woo! I gotta tell you, I was really expecting like a last time on Dragon Ball Z.
For next time, I guess.
Sure, we can bring that sort of
so
thing
good.
in. Yeah, but
All
we're
right.
gonna go right into the heroes talk here. We're gonna be talking about the changes here. We got the Azmodan and the Raynor reworks. Of course, everybody's in there. We've got the Hero League reworks. We've got a whole bunch of map changes. I believe Alterac is now being added to the Hero League pool, so we're going to get into that. So let's start with the Azmodan and Raynor reworks. Raynor reworks. We work. That's a hard thing to say, though. It really is.
Too many R's?
Yeah.
Well, why don't we start off? Let's talk about his R button. He got a brand new update to his ultimate, Raynor's Raiders, right? It's
He
now
got a
just one
buddy.
Raider.
Yeah, he got a little pal. He got a gun Misha,
Yeah.
basically.
So I've played Raynor a bit so far. This is the one talent I've taken at 10. I haven't messed with Hyperion at all. It's been all Raynor's Raider for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically everybody I've seen play right now they've got the ship. The thing is incredible. It shoots, it stays with you the whole time. It can help wave clear. It can give you vision. And I think the vision is probably the underrated part, but for me, it's one of the biggest aspects of having it.
Bobo, have you had the opportunity to see this thing in flight yet?
I got a little bit of playtime over on the PTR, and the other side that intrigues me about Raynor is this incredibly overbuffed build. For those of you that are not quite up on the PTR and really what the way that the meta's been sort of developing based off of the hero reworks, the keys for James Laner, formerly the glorified lane minion, are locked into his level 1s and 7 talents. So if you do jump in on Raynor, we strongly suggest you try Ace in the Hole at level 1 and pick up Unstable Compound at level 7. This is really where the keys to Raynor's damage output are. You're going to wind up actually proccing your own little bit of Executioner there. And at level 4, Raynor's build is going to be varied. At this tier, he has a number of different defensive options. Sort of the baseline choice is probably going to be fight or flight there on level 4. But again, there are different ways to maximize Jimmy's sustainability. And then level 13 and 16, we'll see how these talents wind up developing because there are different options you can wind up building into some of the shotgun talents, if you will, that were previously there for Jim. And then at level 20, the big one, and it finishes off this build so well. Execute at level 20. It will increase his attack speed by 20%, increases basic attack damage by 20%, by 25% against targets below 50% health. And again, this all builds into an exciting and new hero, one that on the PTR people were actually using as a battery for Oriole. That is how much damage he can do. And guys, I don't know if you actually were able to play a little bit of the off-lane Raynor, if you will, but it's there.
Is it?
But Bobo, they've decreased his executioner by 5%.
They did. Yeah, they moved it from 35 to 30 now. Feels bad.
Yeah, so he's a tiny bit less broken than he was in the PTR. No, this dude is broken. This hero is absolutely busted right now. I don't know how they released him with any of these numbers intact, but we are going to be seeing this guy everywhere.
So
No, that level 1 talent is going to need to be adjusted a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I've been actually playing with the trait build, veteran marksman at level 1, and I think this is going to be great in lanes up against, like maybe you see so much Urel, you're going to get free shots in her all day, and your give them some pepper trait is going to stack up enormous. Today I had a game, I was in the 80s by 15 minutes. Like it's an insane amount of damage that you can put out. Buffing each time you proc the trait by 0.75%. I mean, it adds up.
It's going to push people away from minion waves. I mean, basically, when you're off laning, this talent makes sure that if your opponent even steps up to their wave, you just get free splash damage on the whole wave, and you get to proc your quest.
It definitely, like you mentioned, Bobo, I 100% agree. Level 1 is such a versatile talent selection choice you have there. There's so many options you can go into. I think if you have a tank, maybe it's like a Muradin or someone that can help lock down stuns, or maybe you have some slows on your team, I think Ace in the Hole, you're right, is definitely going to be your way to go.
Yeah, I think you're right with the offlaner. Like the things an offlaner needs are basically sustain and wave clear, and I think like mobility. There's some other stuff in there, but those are the two big ones. And I mean, that's Raynor basically with his new trait being able to get area damage. That's huge. Like he doesn't have the wave clear of like a Blaze or a Urel, which by the way we're gonna get into later. But like, you know, I think he could do some work, especially in Hero League.
He absolutely can, and I do think there's a notable shift in the design philosophy for Heroes of the Storm right now. We've been locked into this offlane warrior bruiser meta for what feels like months. We've been through periods in which people are arguing about whether or not it's Sonya or Blaze. We're now in a period where Urel is looking primed to just dominate the offlane. But there are opportunities here for players to try out some sort of safe and sustained damage dealers there in the offlane. And again, it's just trying to open up a few more options. This may be limited to the latter, and maybe it doesn't quite penetrate the competitive scene yet. But I do think there's some exciting things that you can try in the offlane, and maybe we start to see some different comps, especially as Season 5 is around the corner.
Yeah, you see Phoenix in the offlane in pro play anyway, so why not Raynor?
I will guarantee you the first week Raynor is available in HGC that some team is going to rip him off the first chance they get.
Oh, totally. I absolutely see that happening. And I think it's an era in HGC right now of hypercarry. It's happening a lot in HGC, and I think Raynor is perfectly suited to be that role, especially with his improved E.
Yeah, it's definitely, again, a sustained damage sort of meta where a lot of the changes to mages that were made have not resulted in them being at the top of the meta. And we do see a lot of Jaina play, but there isn't too much in the way of, say, Kael'thas, and Gul'dan has sort of fallen off a little bit as well. And so that's where, again, someone like Raynor can fit in. And it is just a strange sight to be jumping around on the PTR a little bit for the last couple of weeks and see Jim himself standing next to Oriel and providing her with so much energy.
Oh, that's sick.
And his own survivability has really not been changed so much. I mean, right now, Fight or Flight, which was a talent that you felt forced to being picked into, has now been baked into his trait in a bit of a baseline change. So that the armor is still there at level 4 for you to pick up, but it is something that you can activate on your own to provide yourself with a little bit of a buff should you actually wind up finding yourself face-to-face with an enemy that you cannot shake off with Jim.
That's true. Speaking of mages, have you guys played Azmodan?
Oh my gosh, Azmodan is great. I got to play him today, and yeah, for me, he feels a bit different, but he still has his same sort of essence that he always had, where he can be that lane bully, he can push multiple lanes, but he has a lot more versatility now. Especially for myself, I found his auto attack build to be pretty interesting.
Yes. No, that's a strong build. It comes online with Bombardment at level 7. But, you know, the old Azmodan, and I think we all felt this way, you were 90-10 about the split push as opposed to the team
yeah,
fight.
and it was a problem.
It was just about how little you could show
That's the thing I'm hearing from Azmodan players is they, you know, for as far as team fight is concerned, the way a lot of players played Azmodan, like he's very much the same but I think for a lot of one tricks, they took away a lot of his bag of tricks that he used to be able to do to just split push and annoy people. So I know you guys, I mean, we talked about this in a previous podcast, but you know what NGS team GG first pick Gazzo GG AFK would do is they'd draft Asmo, Azmodan would just destroy a wall, walk around, and cast Demonic Invasion on the keep and get a keep. He can't do that anymore. So a lot of these real cheese options are not available to you. And for some Azmo players, they feel like that has sort of compromised what the hero was for them.
Oh, absolutely. But there are, again, a number of positive changes. I actually really like the way that laser functions
I think everyone
now.
likes that.
I love All Shall Burn, and the fact that now it's not, a constant channel. It's not something that you would just set it, drain your mana, and then leave. It's actually got a little bit of burst at the end as well. And then the other key is that you, as Azmodan, you don't need to be babysat if you were trying to find stacks. And the level 1 talents are varied in that you sort of get to choose how you are now going to build upon his baseline taste for blood. So you have the option to, again, you have talents at level 1 such as Greed, which is going to increase the time minions will grant Annihilation from 1.5 to 3 seconds. So you have a longer window to clean minions out. Gluttony at level 1 is going to increase the number of stacks of Annihilation gained by hitting heroes with the Globe of Annihilation. And then Wrath is going to build stacks for Annihilation off of basic attacks. So there is some versatility in you are able to now choose how you yourself want to play Azmodan and how you feel like you can best set him up to be stacking towards the late game to get those big globes.
They made they stuck a little bit of Chromie into Azmodan is kind of what they did. I played against him today and somebody went Q build and I was playing Tassadar because of course Jimmy, but they threw a Q at me and it chunked like 25-30% of my health bar. It hurts.
Yeah, I played against one today. Yeah, I played against one today. It was late game, and I was false dead, and he got me down 75% of my health bar every single time he was hitting me late game. It was, it's insane because you can actually get up to 400 pretty easily, and a lot of these quests they want you, or what is it, 200 they want you to get to for the quest, but like you can see them max out at around 400, I think.
There's a separate set of rewards for 200 Annihilation, and then again you're building up towards the 400 mark as well. But you're not locked behind needing Blackpool to get yourself that bonus damage.
I agree.
You're not sitting around sort of waiting for talents to come online to really feel the strength of your globe. Like you will generate damage on your dunks, and you'll continue to do so throughout the early part of that game until you arrive at the point at which that quest is starting to really feel complete. And there's much more team play that Azmodan is going to be able to provide, with the way that he works now. And they also, and again, if you have read many of the reactions so far, especially on Reddit, the biggest complaint on the PTR was that his range was reduced for his globe cast, but the other side of it was that the speed was reduced, and there was a very subtle buff there. If you go ahead and you read the patch notes where the speed of globe was actually increased slightly to try to give back a little bit to the players, and that was the number one complaint that I saw coming out of the PTR.
That all said, I don't think Asmo's going to see like major pro play because people hit so you got to like go between people dodging and people, being able to hit skill shots, but he just doesn't, his globes chunk, but he just doesn't do as much damage as say the top mages like a Kael'thas or a Chromie or anything like that. So I think this is going to remain in a niche area.
It's a much more even experience with Azmodan. Again, you don't feel like you are, when you're playing with him or against him, it doesn't feel like a 4+1 versus 5. He will be able to show up and he will be able to provide you with more in the team fight. And there's a lot more, again, that he can do there. And we'll see how it works out. Again, we don't expect Azmodan to be, top of the meta, but it's going to be interesting to see if and when teams can find space for the big fella to go ahead and make an impact. This is more the
big, it's the question mark of the two reworks. Raynor was more like, yeah, please give me Jimmy He's got his shades down. He's got his beer out. This dude is ready to rock. With Azmodan, it's kind of like, well, maybe this is going to be how it goes, and I think Blizzard's going to have to tweak it a little bit in the future.
So a couple other heroes got some slight changes. Cassia picking up a little bit of damage on her blinding light now, so she can reveal stealthies. She can break channels with it. And this is a hero who's actually been climbing up the win rates in Hero League and Team League. So I think that's a nice little quality of life improvement for Cassia.
I actually think Raynor is going to occupy a similar space as Cassia. Cassia is going to be like, if you need blinds, you can draft her. But Raynor has a very similar kit, actually, in my opinion.
And the blinds for Cassia are underestimated. I actually think they're the strongest form of blinds in the game right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and very clearly there was a design shift around the hero to move her away from just being someone that you strictly picked because there was a large amount of AA on the opposite team. Now she's been sort of evened out a little bit more. It lowers the ceiling on her a little bit, because Cassia for me was always a hero that once or twice a game you would just 1v3 people, just because they would just try to gang up on you with physical damage, and you could just face roll a bunch of keys, and then all of a sudden they went bye-bye and you were still standing there. So it's evened her out in that respect, but it also, just with the changes that they've made, have made her fit into a lot more different comps. I think Seraph's him at level 1 is a really neat talent that will hopefully see some more play. And Cassie is always a hero that I liked, and I hope we do get to see her a little bit more.
And the last hero who got changed is Alexstrasza. Got an update to Lifebinder, which will now heal herself and the target for 300 health per second during the channel, which I think perhaps moves it closer to a pickable talent, because Cleansing Flame is just so good, as we all know. But I think now if you have something like an Avatar Muradin diving deep, using up a health bar, throw a Lifebinder on it, and he's back up to a massive amount of health, it could work out in certain scenarios.
Okay.
You guys have thoughts on this, Alexstrasza?
Let me pause and collect my thoughts here on this.
I think Lifebinder worries me a little bit in that we have given another support a great way to help out the Cho'Gall.
Yeah, I mean, people were already doing.
I didn't even consider that.
People were already doing Lifebinder for Alexstrasza. The upside to that is Cho'Gall 300, like the health for Cho'Gall. It's not a whole lot comparatively, but it is there. I think that this talent probably might start getting picked, but I feel like Blizzard might be in danger of over buffing this talent in the future.
It's possible. They certainly are looking to try to even out her heroic choices. So does Cleansing Flame perhaps maybe increase in cooldown a little bit? Remember, some months ago it went through a damage nerf, which you could really feel. But I don't know if I've seen a Lifebinder Alexstrasza in weeks. And again, we'll just keep an eye on it. I mean, again, that seems like, a talent that they're trying to provide a little bit of a buff to in order to try to even out her heroic selection at level 10. At level 20, it's crazy amounts of healing. It's basically a free channeled, full life bar. And then on top of that, you're getting the procs of Lifebinder itself. So again, it's a neat talent. Does it have more value outside of the highest of health pools? Do we see it anywhere other than Cho'Gall and then maybe the occasional sort of like Stitches unkillable cheese?
I could maybe see a case for it with like a Tassadar or something, like where you give a shield, or even it would have to be combined with another support. So like a Medivh or something like that. So the problem with Lifebinder is that in higher level play, at least, because I think Lifebinder is good, and you can choose a lot of ults at lower levels, but at higher levels of play, there's focus fire. And when people focus fire, you blow somebody up quickly. And if you blow somebody up quickly, you don't have time to be like, oh, I got to wait for my Lifebinder to proc. But if you got a Tassadar, or especially if you've got a Medivh with, reabsorption or something like that, then Lifebinder is all of a sudden fantastic, because Medivh can throw on the shield just to last out the Lifebinder long enough, and all of a sudden your hyper carry is back up to full.
I like that. Again, I hadn't quite thought of that in that manner. Is Lifebinder suddenly going to become her version of, Divine Shield,
Yeah,
or
well, that's the problem, though.
ancestral healing? Like, is that where it is? Is it a case of, okay, they're trying to focus down on this one single target and use a bunch of cooldowns? Here's my one cooldown.
Right. Well, you start using Lifebinder when somebody's going to take a lot of damage, but the proc is so much later than something like even Ancestral, which is even hard to hit. So hard that, when Koreans were playing, they would basically just guess who is going to be focused down and cast Ancestral on them before anybody even cast a spell. So, like, the difference between that and the Divine Shield is the Divine Shield saves your target instantly. Lifebinder, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
Maybe, maybe not. I mean, I don't think we're not too confident that it's all of a sudden going to become the meta for Alex Strazo, but it's notable change. It's something, again, that you can see that the design team is trying to make a point that this is an actual ability in the game and you can use it. So
I mean, that's just Blizzard standard. They buff underperforming talents and they nerf overperforming talents. Simple as that.
Yeah, again, the key in the future will be to keep an eye on Cleansing Flame, see if they make an adjustment there with that ability as well.
I do feel like if this doesn't work, though, they may try to overbuff it, and all of a sudden Lifebinder will just be broken, and no one will know about it until a pro team breaks it out during a game, and then all of a sudden, wait, now we just pick Lifebinder all the time.
So that's it for the patch notes. There, of course, were the changes to the ranked with the third ban coming, but we want to save that for our next episode where we can really break down what we've been seeing taking place in our own matches. Allow us to develop a bit of an opinion on it before we bring it to you, but we do want you guys to know there are third bans in the game, and we are definitely going to discuss it in our next podcast.
It's something that we do have to accumulate a little bit of data for. We want to see how it plays out, especially in scrims, where the three of us are casters and teammates as well for those of you in NGS. We just need to see how it plays out, because everybody has their opinions on how the triple ban is going to work with that double ban at the top of the draft and then that solo ban in the middle. So everybody has opinions right now, but we're short on facts. And if you guys are listeners of the podcast, again, episode number 4, we're going to dive deep into this. We'll have a number of topics, but with that, and as well the map changes to Braxis, changes to Alterac Pass, we're going to see how these things play out. And then, again, we're going to try to see if we can bring in a couple of HOTS dignitaries, if you will, from the community at large, and we'll see if we can sort of come to an agreement, if you will, about how to approach these things going forward here for NGS.
Yeah, I want to shout out to BattleJet86i in the NGS channel, who showed really the power of the three bans, who in a game, I'm not sure if this is unranked or not, but they banned out Gaul, Lost Vikings, Probius, Cho, Murky, and Gazlo. So it's a very powerful system if you want to get out there and use it to its full effect.
Oh my gosh.
You can check that out in the NGS Discord if you're not part of it already.
BattleJet setting the meta now for triple bans.
Well, you're either part of that meta or you're part of the meta we want to talk about here.
Yeah, bring on the pros.
And it's been pretty crazy in HGC because Urel has smashed her way into the scene.
Yes, and there's a number of changes, and again, we're building towards season number 5, so we want to go ahead and provide our listeners with as many resources as possible to get their teams ready, to get their hero pools ready. So, fellas, we were sitting down here, coming up with a quick chart of what we feel the meta is right now, and we're going to go ahead and provide our listeners with a tier list that will be in the podcast feedback channel, so keep an eye on that later in the week as well. But tank meta, tier 1, Johanna and Muradin, and then we put on tier 2, Garrosh, Diablo, and ETC. Reactions, guys, to what we perceive to be the tank meta
This is competitive, right?
Yeah, we're gonna try to stick right now to the team play. We need a little bit more data for the solo on the ladder and the ranked, and in fact, again, we may go ahead in the future and bring up in a guest and try to differentiate between the two. But these are the heroes that we are seeing at the competitive level that are really shining with strong pick rates, strong win rates, and even in the case of some heroes, strong ban rates.
I would have to. The only thing I'd take issue with there is Diablo. I think Diablo's a good tank, and he's got his place. But right now, I think he's seeing a much more niche area in HGC at the moment. He's not the deadly beast he once was way back in HGC. Lightning Breath is good, but people are using it, I think. I'm like looking at this, and the first Diablo I'm seeing is with Fnatic, and it's used with a Tracer composition, the Tracer hyper carry, basically to sort of throw people around, and against like a Genji hyper carry comp. It's the Fnatic versus Method game last weekend on Volskaya. And I feel like he's definitely not like a first pick tank. I feel like you can punish Diablo a lot, and his tools are not as strong as they used to be. APOC was such a powerful tool along with Wombo potential. But I think now that Lightning Breath is the better heroic, I think you're seeing teams build around the slow, and that offers Diablo a lot less options.
Yeah, their teams are definitely trying to figure out where he fits in, but he's seen a little bit of an uptick. Again, we haven't really figured out quite who's on that second tier. But is it Diablo? I mean, Murder, do you have some thoughts about where the tank meta is moving right now?
I think you're spot on with Johanna and Muradin, just because of a lot of their survivability.
Johanna's broken.
Gated behind her Iron Skin, of course. Muradin with his Dwarf Toss that he's always able to get out of any terrible situation. Especially Muradin being much better now that Stukov has kind of slid back a bit, which was always a healer that his silence would just disrupt you from using your Dwarf Toss and allowed teams to secure a lot of kills on Muradin. So I think Muradin's in a great spot currently.
And Johanna, and again, we use the word broken sometimes a little bit liberally, but it seems like it takes two teams to kill Johanna right now. The health buff that came through pushed her not at the top of the charts in terms of the effective HP pool. It was there to try to go ahead and help her out with the removal of baseline armor. But we're in a meta right now that feels like Johanna is the number one tank in the game, and I cannot remember another time.
You basically can't kill her if she has Iron Skin up, and smart tanks will play around that cooldown. And I like Muradin too, and especially NGS teams out there. I would say Muradin is definitely a tank that you guys should be playing. I've been trying to pick up tank, actually. I've been moving to the tank role from my team. And playing Muradin is... it offers you a little bit of leeway, because one of the hardest things about playing tank is taking too much poke. And with Muradin, you can just back off, tell the team, hey, just reset, regen all your health, go back in, try it again. So it's kind of a little bit of training wheels for tanks out there.
And moving on, the support meta has been a little staid, if you will. Right now, what we're looking at is Malfurion at the top, Deckard Cain slightly behind him, and a little bit of a muddy mess after that. Again, Malf and Cain being tier 1 supports is something that is just objectively true. They are Cain. I mean, they're the supports with the highest pick rates, and there's a reason why, but the question is, who's fitting in behind them? What does the next tier of support heroes look like right now?
I think you've got it right here. I'm looking at your tier list. I've cheated, and I've gone ahead and looked at your list before you've announced it to me. But it's Rhaegar Kharazim is right on the money, I feel. Kharazim, I think, is being used to punish I think it was Malfurion comps, but just that extra damage is tough for him to deal with. And Rhaegar, with his buffs, has definitely improved. With that buff to Q? Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So for me, there's a very distinct reason why Malfurion and Cain are both at the top of the list. And it's simply because baseline in their kit, they both have a root. And the follow-up that their teams can provide makes them, they're always going to be the top selections when you can have that sort of setup.
100%. Rhaegar, I think, is up there in part because his Q got buffed to be equal to the healing output that Malf and Deckard can produce, but also at 16, he's kind of got a mini root himself. The Earthbind Totem is pretty good.
And there's a number of different builds that you can go with Rhaegar, and this is something to keep an eye on for the next couple of weeks, because formerly with Rhaegar, you really had just one build that you were locked into. And with that sort of update, not a full rework, but again, a good bit of balancing. When you're playing Rhaegar, you have the opportunity now to either lean on the old school build, which relied on the totem at 4, cleanse at 7, and then you would sort of build into the lightning shield at 13. But now if you buy into one side of his kit, and it may be the chain heal, or it may be the use of his lightning shield, there are a number of talents that will help either of those abilities scale up throughout the game, and they have different applications as well. If you need more of the clear and jungle Rhaegar, a W build, right, jumping in and grabbing a whole bunch of talents there for the lightning shield will be of great use. Or if you feel like you need to have a higher healing output, the chain heal build is coming online a lot earlier, and it's a lot stronger with a good amount of CDR and an extra bit of healing that was not there previously.
Yeah, the W build with the lightning shield, the Stormcaller, the new talent at 4, the mana return on that is very real news. You basically will not run out of mana as Rhaegar if you take that talent.
And that was a huge issue for him. If you were playing with Rhaegar, you would go through the fight at level 1, right in the middle, where you just run it down.
Yes. And you're reading my mind, Bobo.
Oh my god, if you hung out for too long with Rhaegar, a few abilities, you're right back out of there. And grabbing the extra radius at level 1 is a huge pickup there, again, for that lightning shield build, and then buying into the mana recovery at level 4.
Because here's what would happen, Bobo, in Hero League, is you'd get a Garrosh, and you'd get a Garrosh walking up and doing the level 1 fight, and he'd walk into the enemy team, and he'd get damaged, and he'd walk out and you'd heal him, and he'd walk back in, and he'd walk out again, and you just keep healing him over and over and over again, and about a minute 30 in, you're like, well, I'm bye.
Yeah, 2:30 and you got to press the B button. Like, that's not really an effective way to play that hero. And he even had a little bit of trouble, too. If you were just trying to play jungle Rhaegar as well, you would grab a camp, and meanwhile, your team is just, trying to help sustain the lanes as well. And then you'd look down and you go, sorry, I got a hearth. I got to go back. It's definitely something to keep an eye out on.
Yeah, it's rough.
So off lane, tier 1.
Yes.
This one's pretty
Yrel.
easy, right?
Yrel.
Pretty easy, Yrel. So behind Yrel, and I think she's a clear number 1 right now, it's Blaze and Dahaka. We see a lot of them being played. Dahaka, of course, for his global, which I think is going to be just utilized by all these HGC teams to perfection. You see players like Glaurung, who is now, I think, best known for his Dahaka at least in NA. Like, he's just an absolute beast on the hero. And I mention him because he's my favorite hero in the game, right? Give me a break.
You're very happy. You're very happy Dahaka's back in the meta. And it took a little while. Like, he was, again, not considered to be a suboptimal offlaner. And really what we're kind of seeing in the offlane is less about the aggressive heroes that are going to wind up trading damage out against each other, and it's a lot more wave control. It's a lot more bullying. And when we talk about bullying, it's whether or not you can keep the enemy offlaner away from the wave in order to deny them experience as well as globes as well. So Yrel, Blaze, and Dahaka are just sturdy, stalwart heroes that each have their own fantastic sort of regen mechanics or their own self-heals. And that's why we're seeing a lot more of them. And listen, if you're not playing Yrel right now and you're an offlaner, you're missing out. There will probably be a nerf to some of her talents. We expect this to calm down a little bit because she is just bodying people at the professional level.
But basically, go have your fun while you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Just Goomba stomp a couple of fields, like just hop on top.
This is release Zarya again.
You think it's that bad?
I don't. Okay, it's not that bad in terms of win rate. It's that bad in terms of Yrel will destroy a lane and dominate team fights. We had Cav guest on last week, and our last podcast at least, and Yrel was he's basically saying Yrel is broken, and not only that, but he's having a hard time finding replays to show how broken Yrel is. Excuse me, I had a cough. He's having trouble finding replays to show how broken Yrel is because he doesn't think that pros are even playing her optimally yet. So
no, they've got to figure it out for sure.
If pros, like, I mean, I'm looking at Master League right now, and it's basically a Yrel collage. It's Yrel. At every single match, it's Yrel, and that's in all regions. So if she's this broken now, I think people are going to start catching on. Like, he's bragging that he's beating pretty much every single other character in the game. And not only that, but he's taking towers, he's taking structures, he's doing fort damage. I know there's a lot of discussion about, like, who beats Yrel in a fight, but word on the street is that she may be even more broken than we think.
It's possible. And I do think if you're trying to catch up on Yrel in terms of builds and playstyles, if you take a look at HCC, a couple of standout performers. Keep an eye on EU. Keep an eye on Wubby. And keep an eye on Ethereal Angel, because they've grabbed this hero and they've put her in a position where it's first pickable, it's first ban worthy. And again, those are two pros that are going to show you how to play this hero incredibly well. And again, if you're an offlaner right now and you're in the offseason trying to get ready for season number 5, you need to pick this hero up.
Yeah, for just hints, just a short thing I can say, always just go Murad's Insight.
Yes. It's the standout at that level. All right. Moving on to a very complicated little set of heroes. We're going to jump into the ranged DPS and try to set up what we feel like is the competitive meta right now. So because they are who they are, they're Overwatch heroes, and they do all of the things. Genji and Tracer are still up there. You still have to respect those heroes, but we also expect with the triple ban phase that they're going to be largely removed from the video game. So the other tier 1 heroes that we're looking at right now, Jaina, Hanzo, Phoenix, and I'm preaching the gospel, Sergeant Hammer.
Oh, yeah.
Tier 2, we've been seeing some Ming, some Chromie, a little bit of Falstad, and a little bit of a Greymane resurgence as well. But, fellas, how do you feel like the ranged DPS heroes are shaping up right now?
All right, so let's talk about Hammer. So this hero it hasn't been touched, right? Like, what's been changed on Sergeant Hammer in the past 87 months? I can't think of anything.
Not very much, except for the fact that we are living in a meta in which the value of a self-cleanse is massive. Siege Tactics at level 4 is absolutely insane. It's a talent it's a talent that for Hammer, it just makes you feel fairly invincible every time that ability is able to be procced. You have it unstoppable while you're in siege mode. You could just nope the heck on out of there. But she's working right now in the meta incredibly well because she counters Genji and Tracer. She prevents them from finding a soft target with which to just insta-jib. And right now, Hammer just gives you the opportunity to take all of the objectives in this video game and just win more. If you win an objective with Hammer, you're going to get more out of it.
Yeah, it's like Sylvanas used to be, I think, with at least in that regard.
It's a good, no, absolutely, it's a great comparison.
Everyone else, though, like Genji, I think, of course, is back. And I mean, a skilled player, a Genji in the hands of a skilled player, open division last night. Right now, as we're recording this, the Cup 2, I believe it is, for the open division just happened. It was the first round, and spoilers, Queen's Gambit did lose, and we're going to talk about that later, I think.
Yeah. Yes, a very pro-heavy team.
Yeah, but Alex Ick, a former League of Legends pro, was on Genji, and when he was allowed to pop off, he popped off. So I think heroes like Genji are always going to have a kit that if he doesn't get insta-destroyed, he will be in the meta.
So we've seen an uptick in Abathur. We've seen an uptick in Thrall back in the 4-man, particularly as protection, and as well to pair the Earthquake up with Phoenix and the Purification Salvo. That's a really popular combo that we've seen a lot. But also, there has been an uptick in Tassadar play.
Oh, yeah. Hypercarry's back, and I'm serious about this. Like, this is definitely going to be a thing. And it's not the instant... It's not a must-pick combination. Teams can pull it out when they say, okay, we're going to go hypercarry here, and let's build towards it. But it's not something that HEC teams are going to do all the time, but it's definitely back, and it's definitely real.
Yeah, I think it feels good when you're not seeing it every game. You're getting it in the right moments, like it's tasteful double support.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like that, yeah.
I mean, who are some of the favorite heroes that you guys like to pair with Tassadar? We've seen a lot of Tass Hanzo. We've seen some Tass Hammer as well.
Jim Raynor!
Jim!
Oh, God.
I think you could even do it with Cassia, man. I'm telling you, this hero's coming up in the meta. Her win rate, I talked about a bit earlier, is really rising in Hero League. And if you're going to continue seeing heroes like Phoenix who rely on auto attacks, maybe you're going to be seeing more Raynor. Cassia is going to have a place.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be auto attacks either. It just has to be someone that can get in there because Task Shield does help with auto attacks, and but he also at 4 he's also got that armor when the shield expires, so it helps a lot.
And he provides an extra little bit of wave clear as well. And Archon is a heroic that maybe feels a little bit underwhelming at times, but it does provide the reset on Dimensional Shift, and then 20 with Twilight Archon is an objectively fun thing to watch. Just trying to watch people chain auto attacks to try to keep Archon up and available. As at level 20, that talent just it exceeds expectations every single time we get to see it.
Wasn't it
I would say good.
Wasn't it Fan at Midseason Brawl who had like a good 3-minute Archon going to win the game?
Yep.
I forget who they're up against.
Yeah, it's nuts. I would say for NGS teams, go in and practice hyper carry comps. I think that's an easy thing to do. You get somebody on Tassadar, you get somebody on Malfurion or something like that, and just, let your guy who says he's got a boss tracer or, something like that, get them in there and get them in the game and see how it goes, and just play protect them. It helps with comms and it helps with team support. I would also say that for you can bring out Valera too. Don't be afraid to bust her out. The reason we're not seeing her in pro play, and this is from Cavalier Guest, is because pros don't have enough time to practice her. And that's a big deal when you see heroes in the pro scene.
Interesting. And again, we did see a lot of Valera in the Heroic Div playoffs, so you know that she's a strong hero that does have a place. We'll see how that winds up shaking out. But again, we're going to go ahead and we're going to try to keep a tier list with our thoughts on the competitive team play, and how, again, this meta is going to shake up. We'll reference this again as we go ahead and hit on a couple more podcasts before the start of season number 5. And the last note that we're going to leave you guys on here as we try to touch on the meta is the map meta right now. And there's just a couple of interesting statistics going in. And as casters, we're always interested to see where the map selections move and where teams like to bring us in our sets. So taking a look at, and this is a little focused, the competitive meta right now for North America and EU. And these are the two regions that we feel like our play in NGS probably most closely follows. There's a very clear setup here. There is one map that shines above all others, and there's one map that is just not getting played. And on the low end, with only one selection here in the first 2 weeks, is Brax's Holdout. And on the flip side, on the high side, a map that has been picked more than any other map is Volskaya. And Braxis is a very tricky map, right? It's a map that almost seems to have two play styles, one where you're going to have heavily rotate and one where you're going to sort of buy into the strong 4-man, but it's a map that gets banned out because it's one that is suggested to be more susceptible to cheese strats, but again, it's just fallen off the competitive meta. But why is Volskaya at the top right now?
I think it's a good map. I think it's got a powerful objective. It's got zone control. I think the only downside to the map for me is point C, which stands for clown, because of those stupid conveyor belts.
Oh, you've got some history with Volskaya there, don't you, buddy?
Well, at least the good part is point C. You typically only get to one time a game because after the fifth trig glob, the game's over, right? And you're not going to get back to C again.
But exactly. But there's so much to do on the map, and that. No, okay. There's not so much to do because that's actually another problem with it. Is that at certain times, there's just nothing to do on the map. But I think the items are unique for players, and I think each team likes that there's different ways to approach the map.
And for the rest of the tier, so again, we put Volskaya right up on the S tier. The sort of next tier of maps, the ones that we see receiving a lot of priority. Tomb of the Spider Queen, and Towers of Doom. And then closely behind there is another set of maps, and we're going to kind of group these up. This is sort of A tier and B tier. So in A, we had Tomb and Towers, and in B tier, a set of maps that have been picked equally. Cursed Hollow, Dragonshire, Infernal Shrines, and Sky Temple. So there's a good bit of diversity here going on. Guys, any changes to these maps that you feel like have maybe pushed them up or down in the meta right now?
It could just be a lot of the meta itself changing with the heroes. Again, we're seeing so much Deckard Cain. I think he plays really well on Volskaya. I think he also plays really well on maps like Infernal Shrines, especially late game when he gets those replenishing cups. Is that the name of the talent where he gets the potions that keep regenerating?
Bottomless Flask.
Bottomless Flask.
Yes.
Thank you, Encyclopedia. I think
get those flashcards out, Murda.
I think a talent like that paired with an area root, it's so good on these maps where you're trying to control over points. It's he's really changed a lot, and that's mostly why I think you're seeing a lot of Volskaya.
I think the only map I can really speak to as far as meta changes is Cursed Hollow. The other maps I feel like is just sort of happenstance. Maybe some maps are more popular. Volskaya, I think a lot of teams can prepare for it. Infernal Shrines is always going to be highly picked. Dragonshire, Towers of Doom, Tomb, like all those maps are always going to be picked. Well, Cursed Hollow, this again is some cavalier guess because I listen to his stream a lot and he talks a lot. But Cursed Hollow is basically broken right now because of Hanzo. And because Hanzo allows you to get boss in basically an instant, and that completely changes the map. And so you have to ban out Hanzo right away unless you want to pick him, and that completely changes how you play the map. And if you can't first pick, why would you pick the map? That was the problem with Braxis. That being said, the triple ban may bring back Cursed Hollow.
It's possible. Remember, Cursed Hollow is the kind of map where Abathur is just at the top of the tier. Right, so you may have a different strategy in there. We've always seen teams on Cursed Hollow move into sort of boss control heroes. So sometimes even if he's out of the meta, you'll see a lot of Tyrael, you'll see a fair amount of Falstad as well, just to try to secure camps in those boss points. And then the last map that again has received a reduction in play, and we're going to throw it into the C tier. There is Battlefield of Eternity, and in my opinion, that has to do a lot with just the fact that there is, again, we talked about Hanzo at pro play level. If you are on BOE, it's all about Hanzo right now. And it almost feels like there is just a lack of race, so that if one team gives up Hanzo, the other team is just going to play for the team fight. And it seems like there is really a lack of styles on this map. And that may be why it is seeing a reduction of pick rate.
I think it also is like Braxis Holdout. We see it's such a snowbally map. Battlefield of Eternity is essentially almost the same thing. In terms of what's available in the pool, Battlefield and Braxis have that common factor of them. You're able to snowball a game if you get the right situation working for you. And I think a lot of teams like having more counterplay available to them. And I don't know. For me, I like Braxis. I like Battlefield of Eternity, but I can understand why some people don't like that play style.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm looking at Master League right now, and actually, I'm not sure if this is because of open division teams or odd tournaments, but I'm looking at the map charts here, and Battlefield of Eternity actually hasn't fallen off quite as much.
Right. It's lagging a little bit behind those groups that we put in the B tier there, and it's not as far down as Braxis. Again, Braxis has only seen one pick here in the first 2 weeks for NA and EU.
Yeah, but again, BOE it's a 2-lane map. That's the bottom line. It's a snowbally because it's a 2-lane map, and there's a lot of people who are just like ban all 2-lane maps. They're dumb, but people will keep picking Battlefield of Eternity because they think they can win on it. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Right on. So again, just to refresh everybody here, the map meta as we see it at the top, the S tier map right now, Volskaya, Foundry. Guys, get used to it. Find yourself a playstyle there. The next setup at the A tier, Tomb of the Spider Queen and Towers of Doom. On the next level at B, Cursed Hollow, Dragonshire, Infernal Shrines, and Sky Temple. On the C tier, we have Battlefield of Eternity, and down in the dumps is Braxis Holdout. And we're going to reference this again in a couple of weeks as we approach Season 5. We're going to take a deep dive on these maps. We'll bring in some guests to try to talk about how these maps have changed, how teams should be playing these. Maybe there are some ways that they are playing them incorrectly. And again, we'll get even a little bit deeper onto what heroes are working extremely well on these maps as well, and those that should see a strong priority. 2018 will be the 4th annual Heroes of the Storm Championship at BlizzCon. And as you guys know, HOTS has come a long way from the early Mordor days. And there's one very special person that has been with us for the duration of our journey through the Nexus. We are joined today by not only one of HGC's longest-serving casters, but the proud owner of her own NGS tribute team, Gilly Shark, the luminous and effervescent Gillyweed. Gilly, thank you for being with us today. We are so appreciative that you took some time out of your busy schedule to be with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Right on.
Yeah. Now, my first question is actually, you started a long time ago doing StarCraft 2 videos. Was that the first time that you had put content onto the internet?
Yeah, pretty much. I think I was streaming a little bit before that and just streaming some indie games. But as far as esports is concerned, StarCraft was where I got my start.
How did you get into Heroes? Did you just hear about the game and figure, oh, I can play all my StarCraft 2 heroes, so I might as well jump in?
I've been playing Blizzard games for a lot of my life. but I was on Blizzard's radar somewhat from the StarCraft content that I'd made. I'd actually been invited as a community person a couple of times to BlizzCon from my StarCraft content. And so I was invited to the technical alpha, I think largely because of that work. And I've played a lot of MOBAs before. And so for me, this was kind of the best of both worlds because it was a Blizzard game with Blizzard characters I love, like you said, from StarCraft. But then also it was a game type that was very familiar to me. So I felt like if I were to try my chops at casting, which I wanted to do, I'd always wanted to do, then this would be the perfect game to do so.
Oh, that's awesome. Does your MOBA experience go all the way back to like Dota 1?
It does not go back that far. I never really got into Dota, but I did play quite a lot of League of Legends.
Oh, that's awesome. So when Blizzard got you on their radar, did they approach you about casting after you had been streaming the technical alpha, or like did you start casting on your own?
I started commentating when Heroes Hype was created. First, it briefly was just created. I don't know if anybody remembers this, but it was a like an online newsletter that let people know what was happening in the very infant stages of our esports scene. And
I remember that newsletter going way back.
Oh, wow.
I just remember that. And I had a podcast that Anna Pross Robinson and I created with the express purpose of trying to learn the game in a way that we could commentate it, because we both had the goal of trying out commentary someday. And we became friends with Miss Honey, who founded Heroes Hype, and she knew that we had that interest. And so when she converted Heroes Hype into the amateur tournament, or added on to it, having the amateur tournament, she asked if we would be interested in commentating as a nice, safe place for us to learn and practice and grow. And so I was doing that for several months before I was approached by Blizzard to commentate for them.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, we're all actually members of Heroes Hype right now in casting the amateur tournament.
What was your experience doing the podcast for us podcast hosts here? Any tips for us moving forward? Eye on the Storm was the name of it, right?
Yeah. Let's see. It's been such a long time. Having an outline is good so that you don't go too far off topic. And finding a guest can be hard sometimes, so don't leave that to the last minute. Those would be the two big tips for me. It was a lot of fun to have a podcast. Eventually, we both got very busy with our respective jobs, but for the time that we had it, it was really special. The community of Misclicks is amazing, and it just felt like it was a place to just hang out with my friends, and especially get to hang out with Anna since we live in different cities every week.
Awesome. Now, the first time Blizzard asked you to come up and do a cast for them, like professionally, did they like fly you out and have you do the cast like at a LAN? Or what was that experience like in starting to cast, as, official Blizzard caster?
Nerve-wracking. So yeah, they did. They flew me to the ESL studios at Burbank, and I stayed in a hotel. It was the NA round of 8 regional that was leading up to the Vegas event, America's Championship, and it was the second one they'd done. I was replacing a StarCraft commentator who had done the first one I'm friends with.
Mhm.
And it was my birthday the day before. So I flew in on my birthday, and I didn't really know anybody, and so I just kind of kept it quiet and was hanging out. But I ordered room service for myself, and then I got so nervous that I ended up being sick. And it was terrifying, but it was awesome. Like Jake and Kubi and Forecourt Jester, that's who I was commentating with. It felt like, oh my gosh, I'm here with these guys that I've been watching commentate, and I hope I can keep up with them. And it was very nerve-wracking, but it was awesome. It was such a dream come true.
Yeah, Forecourt's actually done some work for us here in NGS. I've gotten to cast with them a few times. I did grand finals with him once. Yeah, he's a really great guy. I'm kind of sad he's not as big into the scene. I guess he didn't make it to the next round of things, and there's Gilly. She took all the spots.
But it's really wild, and just out of curiosity, like we're going back all the way to the beginning of HOTS. Like how much of that initial core group of you guys is still together, is in contact? Do you guys keep up? Do you know where everybody is? I mean, there's such a long list of names, and I remember I actually was kind of bouncing around Reddit the other day, and someone had posted, the infamous Cloud9 DK set, and that was yourself, Kubi, and I think Babel was there. He was a great hype man, by the way.
Babel, for a while, like last year, Babel still commentated for the SEA things, and I know I'm pretty sure he still manages Resurgence. Every once in a while, I talk to him. Jake is still doing Open Division, does the Crucibles, and I still, every great once in a while, keep in touch with Zoya. I'm still in touch with Anna. I think those are probably the main people from those earliest 2015 days that I keep in touch with.
Yeah, and where's Bobby Hank Hill? I actually have a question about sort of like, you found that first experience nerve-wracking. Do you still get that sort of nervousness or butterflies when you cast now?
Sometimes I do, and I love it. So I treasure those moments now. It's a good reminder of where I've come from, and the adrenaline gives you energy as long as you can channel that. For me, early days, it was really hard to do that, and so pacing was something that was troublesome for me, and now I'll definitely still get it before, like if I'm at an event, the first time I cast in front of a crowd, or the start of a really big show, like the first time I'm on a desk for MSB, like I got it there, and sorry, I was worried my computer just died there. So sometimes I do still get it, but it's not nearly to the same effect as I did before. Like for instance, I can still eat before broadcasts now.
When you do it, when you get on the stage and go up now, like what does a day look like for you when you go into the studio? So, like from backstage when you show up into getting on the camera, like what's that process look like before a set?
So I wake up and I put on Europe. I wake up around somewhere between 8 and 9. And then I go through my morning prep, which I've already prepped the storylines, looked a lot at drafts for each of the teams in the matches. So I have all of those notes written down. So it's just a matter of running through those and reminding myself of the points that I want to make. And then I also, and some of those are developed on my own. Some of them are developed in conjunction with Jay Howe. I also always run through the names of all of the abilities before each day I commentate, and that's to preload them in my brain so that I'm not looking for the names of abilities in a hype moment of play-by-play.
Actually, I can I don't know about you guys, but I can totally relate to that. Like, I don't know how many times I've been mad at myself for calling something a Q or an E.
I go back after the match and I go through like a website trying to figure it out. I'm like, oh my God, how did I not think of that? All the time. Actually, Gilly, so you talked a bit there about things you're doing to get ready for a cast, and obviously some of these ability names freshening up on those. Is there anything else that you try to brush up on heading into the cast, or
if a new patch, if we're going to be commentating on a new patch for the tournament realm, then I'll go through the patch changes so that numbers especially are fresh in my mind. There's a lot of stuff I go through in the week leading up. Like I go through drafts of each team, and I update the heroes that they've played so that I have that available to me on the broadcast. I go through stats that are given to us throughout the week so that I can have some cool numbers to bring up, or some interesting numbers. I go through win rates of heroes and pick rates of heroes. And I always, at the end of every broadcast, I go through and I write notes of what happened every game. And what that does is it allows me to remind myself of things that we talked about each week so that I can just add that to the story of a team, and that helps develop the story of a team throughout a part or a phase.
These are very, very good notes, by the way, for our season 5 caster hopefuls. The three of us will be testing you on these later.
Well, you did say, like, you said that you've got storylines that you said you accumulate them in the notebook like this. Are these storylines something you go over with like the rest of production in HGC, or is this like something that's your personal like narrative that you're creating?
Definitely it's created with your co-caster. So Jayhao and I will talk about them like in the car. We drive together on the way to the studio. So we'll talk about them. We'll talk about the meta. We'll talk about different things. We'll listen to hype EU matches. We'll put that on. And some of it gets talked about with production, especially we have meetings with Blizzard every week, and if there's stuff that's happening in other regions too, like in Korea and China, they'll try to keep us updated with some of that, just so we can keep things cross-regional, because it's hard to keep up with all the regions at once when you're also trying to dive into in depth your own region.
So you talked a bit about your notebook there. What else goes into Gillyweed's notebook? What give us a look inside that book.
Well, I think what people might not realize is it's not just the notebook. I have my iPad too. So my iPad has stats available, and then it has team sheets for every team. And the team sheets have all the drafts of a certain section. Like now I'm starting to compile all the drafts for part 1, but they also have either MSB or part 2 of phase 1 drafts. They also have my drafting like analysis breakdown of draft by map, and that helps me like, oh yeah, this team really likes this hero on this map. It also has, like I said, the heroes that they've played and win rates with them. It has interesting talents. That's something that I always love to put in there if someone's picked something interesting, like Biggie's Dragon's Breath build when he played Chromie.
Oh.
And and it has like just some gameplay observations, some story things, just things to keep in mind and remind myself, that are mainly based off of, again, those notes that I take after every day of broadcast on every game. And then my notebook, it mainly has like the lines that I want to use, like for intros and stuff. Like if I think of something cool that I like, then I'll jot it down there. But mainly it's just where I take note of drafts, and then like who I want to follow throughout the game or throughout the series.
Yeah. I have a question. So when you do notice these things about this game, outside of the technical stuff like builds or like win rates and things, what do you decide is important to highlight? Like, how do you notice, like, what sort of things do you notice that maybe makes up a storyline or maybe makes up a narrative for you?
There's a couple of different things. Like if we highlight a person at the beginning of a match, then that can become what develops. Another thing is trends from game to game and what develops, and especially in the drafts too. When you see a series start to go into the later games in the series, you see a lot of adjustments being made against each other and trying to recall and highlight what's different, which is going to be different because it's a different map, but also just what's changing as the teams are feeling each other out in the drafts. Also trends within like, okay, every game a certain team is falling behind, but then they always make a comeback play. Like if that happens from trend to trend, then you can start to build the idea of like, okay, when is that going to happen for them? Because we know that they do that. It's just these kinds of things. You try to be open in the first couple of games in a series to what is seeming to be the story of the series, and then from there you try to hone in on that as you develop the series.
Okay. Are you privy to scrims? I know Jayhao is invited to a lot of scrims, but do you get to watch those too?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Is it difficult, like, not giving up information from a team when you know they've got something in their pocket?
No, I don't. No, I think. I'm trying to think if there was ever a time where
because I would
felt
be worried
that was the case.
Yeah, I would be worried about accidentally blurting it out.
Yeah, I understand the concern for accidental. It's more like I'm never like, oh, I really want to be able to share this thing, but I can't. Like that for me, it's so sacred, and I respect the teams. I think all of the NA teams, and to my knowledge, like I've even watched some EU scrims too. Like they're fine with me watching, but I also feel like I've been able to earn that trust from them too, because it is very important that you can be trusted for that kind of information.
So I kind of want to pivot a bit now. We have a lot of casters in NGS and a lot of people looking up to the professional level casters, yourself included, and want to figure out ways to improve their skills. So what would be a few tips or important things for prospective casters we have here in NGS that you think they should really focus on building as part of their caster toolkit?
For one thing, learn the ability names. I used a tool called Anki, ANKI, which is a basically a flashcard program, but it's designed so that it reminds you of it's based on like some science about memory, and so it brings certain things back up after so long. So like if you get something right a few weeks in a row, then it will wait and bring it back up to you a few months later, because it's based on memory studies of how long it takes for you to forget something.
That's really cool. We're definitely going to link that. That's what a neat tool.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I don't use it anymore because I've just gone through the abilities so many times, and now I'm just adding in
Gilly the encyclopedia.
Yeah. Now I'm just adding in the new heroes as they come in one at a time. So I don't need it, but for when you're trying to learn up front all of them, I think it's really useful. And then I think the best thing I can do is just practice. Don't be afraid. I think a lot of times this kind of thing is you're afraid of putting yourself out there, which is, by the way, totally understandable. But you just have to do the thing. And so you can practice off of your own VODs. Master League also has the replays if you want to cast the pros. Find casters that you like and figure out what you like about them, the things that they do that you like, and try those out. And I wouldn't suggest that past a certain point, but to get started, I think that's a really good thing. Eventually, you're going to want to find out what makes you unique. What's the thing that you can bring to a cast, your niche, the thing that you enjoy the most? For me, it's telling the stories of the players and trying to connect people with the players and their mindset a little bit better.
We every season we've added so many casters, and season 4 was no different. I'm sure we'll add a lot in season 5. But I mean, the key takeaway is I think a lot of people initially their fears are actually based around the software itself, and I think they are afraid of OBS or afraid that they're not going to be able to put on a quality show. And I think you really hammer home the point. Like, you do have to practice. You have to be able to see these things as an observer and listen to yourself as well, and then get that feedback.
Yeah, you just have to do the thing. It will it will be bad at first, but that's okay because you're doing something new. It doesn't have to be flawless, and it's such a subjective thing that you're never going to make anybody happy anyway. So just do the thing and enjoy it. That's the biggest thing. If you're having fun, then others are going to have fun listening to you.
I think that's all really great advice.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead. You had one?
Oh yeah. I just was wondering, like, you've seen a lot of amateur casters. What's one of the biggest mistakes that you see inexperienced casters make during a cast?
I think pacing is something that people don't really think about. Talking too fast, especially when you're nervous. That's something that I struggled with a lot. So you'll end up talking, if you do talk too fast, you'll have to start slowing yourself down, and it will sound slower than it should sound to your brain, but it helps to slow you down. And another thing that helps with pacing that I was taught by a talent coach is right before you start talking, take a deep breath. And that, for some reason, just naturally will slow you down.
Did you hire a talent coach when you started doing more casting?
No. When we started, we worked with a couple of outside production companies, and one of them had a person who was designed to be sort of like I think the official title was scriptwriter, but because it's not scripted, it was mainly like to help with wording of like sponsorship type things, and basically he was a talent coach. And what's cool is he teaches improv classes. And so last year at the beginning of the year, to try to improve my desk presence, I took improv classes from him for a couple of months, and it was super fun. I would love to do it again if I had time. But we had him. We've also, Blizzard has had a couple of different people come in and help us with different things. Like we did have one talent coach who focused a lot on gestures, and they also had that same guy come back in and just do an improv class with all of the HGC casters one time. And so they have like brought in these outside resources that have helped not only with team building a little bit, but also improving our craft.
I would second the improv classes. That definitely was something that I had a lot of fun doing for like a year or two.
So Gilly, you get the opportunity right now casting with J-How, and obviously you're very well known for casting so long with Dreadnought. But also at the midseason brawl, at BlizzCon, all the other big events, you're getting to cast with so many different personalities from Europe. Obviously like Wolf and company from Korea, even Skimmy and Vandy have hopped in. How do you strike a good balance with such a wide mix of co-casters?
This is one of my favorite things about casting, is I love trying to adapt my style while still keeping the things that I enjoy and that fill my role on the casting team, so that I can help my co-casters shine in what they do best and try to exemplify those. I feel like that is what makes me one of the more flexible casters that we have, is because I do take time to say, what do I feel Kaldor excels at, and what can I do that will increase that, will help him shine in that area. Or I didn't get to cast with Vandy, but the same would apply. Wolf, I've casted a lot with him. Grubby, I sit down and I have a friend who watches all of my casts, and sometimes even he and I will sit down and we'll talk about we've discovered that this person really likes to talk about talents, so maybe I talk a little bit less about talents so that we don't overwhelm people with talents, and then like instead wait for this person to bring them up, and then I can go on a conversation and like start a conversation from that.
Just for a concrete example, like what's something that you noticed in J-How's casting before you started casting with him regularly that you wanted to bring out?
J-How loves to talk about and hype individual players, and so I like to build off of the points that he makes when he talks about individual players. And a lot of times we'll already know who wants to talk about which players, and it's based on stats. We get the same stats notebook, and so I'll be like, I bet you want to talk about this person this week, and he's like, yeah, you know it. And so as a host too, that's what's really fun about hosting, is I try to be really open with whoever I'm casting with and say like, hey, if ever there's something that you want to talk about, you just let me know and I will get you to that point, which is especially useful, I think, when we start to have more people on the desk, like an analyst desk, because you might not, it's pretty easy in a two-person desk to just be like, I want to talk about this thing, but it's harder when you have more people on the analyst desk.
So you just mentioned hosting, and I think that's kind of a unique question I have for you. You had the opportunity to host the Rocket League Rival Series. How does that compare to what you've done with Heroes of the Storm?
I think it was such a good way for me to find out, can my preparation and the style of preparation hold up for another game? And the answer is yes. But yeah, it was really cool. I was very excited about it. The thing that was surprising to me is that and I don't know why this was surprising, guys, but it was, not every game has analysis of the game in the same way that Heroes of the Storm does. So I went in Rocket League, I was like, well, what do I talk about if I don't have talents?
Physics.
Or
Soccer balls.
Skins?
Well,
I don't know.
I don't have levels. What are we talking about here? And so it was a lot of research to watch Axel Toss, who hosts the RLCS,
Mhm.
and figure out like what does it mean to analyze Rocket League? What are the kinds of questions that he's asking? And then go a step further and say, what can I bring over from Heroes to make it my own thing, to make it my own spin? And I thought that it was really fun. I loved it. I had a blast. And I feel like my hosting has gotten a ton better because I had that experience.
What did you find from Heroes that you were able to bring over?
I think because Heroes has so many different things you can analyze, if I just talked about the same things, which a lot of Rocket League is based in history, it's the history of these players and what does that mean when you put certain players together. I was like, I want to talk about other things too. So I would reach beyond and like try to find a lot of different ways of asking different questions. And there were sometimes I always provided my questions to my to the analysts beforehand. And there were sometimes they were like, yeah, this doesn't really apply. And I'd be like, yeah, okay, you're fine. That's fine. But for the most part, I feel like the biggest thing is I got like a bigger breadth of analysis out of those guys.
I think, I mean, you do a lot of work in the background when you're not on camera for Heroes of the Storm. What would you say most of your time is spent doing off camera? Because I know you mentioned like researching win rates, researching, talents and remembering these kind of things. Like where does most of your time go with that?
In the weeks that we have league play for HGC, I would say most of it is writing out storylines, analyzing the team's drafts, making sure that everything's up to date from week to week. And that changes a lot when we go to international competitions, and then that's what I call crunch time. It's just I will sit down for like 8 to 10-ish hours a day, and it's purely catching up on VODs of the teams that I'm going to be commentating that I don't normally commentate. So any of the other regions that aren't NA. And then getting all of their drafts, really diving deep into their drafts, diving deep into their VODs, watching team fights several times through on slow motion to get a feel for every single player. And I also try to go back through and look at talents, and then of course playing the game as much as I can. Playing the game is very important during all of that, both in studying for international events, but also for this league play.
So we have a few questions from our community, and I want to find some way to fit these in so we can make sure that they're being represented here. And you listeners who did contribute, thank you so much for stopping in the podcast channel this week and saying that. So the first one here is from French, and he wants to know, who is your favorite character in the Blizzard universe? And we know it's Brightwing, so choose someone besides Brightwing.
Actually, I don't know if it would be Brightwing. Character in the whole
Heard it here first.
in the whole Blizzard universe. I will say, let me think about this for a second.
You've got a second. But by the way,
Okay.
there were more Carbot Brightwing portraits than everything else combined this season.
Oh, absolutely.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
much.
She's definitely my favorite hero. I think Kerrigan is probably who I would say for that. She has I don't necessarily like her story in Legacy and maybe before that, but she still is a very rare, awesome female monster bad guy, which is rare in games. Blizzard's always been amazing at making female characters.
It's actually leads into the next one here. This one's from Cersei. She wants to know, what would you say to other young women watching you that view you as a role model?
Well, first of all, thank you, because that is one of the primary reasons why I have made it as far as I have, and kept going despite some truly difficult times. I hope I can make you proud, and thank you.
Excellent.
Okay. And then our last one here from Wedge. He wants to know, how do you see the rest of the competitive scene, or excuse me, how do you and the rest of the competitive scene perceive amateur leagues like NGS and Heroes Lounge? Do you ever watch to see different skill levels, or are we just kind of an afterthought? Like, how does the professional scene perceive us?
I can't speak for the rest of the professional scene, but I think that, I mean, I got my start commentating an amateur tournament, so there is a lot of love there. And to keep an esport going long term, you have to have continued growth of players. Like, people are going to retire, and you need people to replace them. So it's a training ground, and it's also just a place for people to be able to go and play with their friends and enjoy the love of competition and playing together as a team. And I've gotten to see that through my Gilly Sharks too, and I've been reminded of that through them.
Sharks.
Yeah, so I loved getting to watch them play, and my friends that I play with give interviews. Like, I think it's just so cool. So I think gotten to kind of like live vicariously through them again when I haven't gotten to commentate the amateur like side of Heroes for a long time. It's been really fun, and I love it.
Well, listen, if this HGC thing is kind of fleeting and maybe doesn't really work out, you're more than welcome. I mean, we'll take a look at your work, we'll review it, and we'll see if we can find you a spot. But
Caster hopeful, maybe?
Hey! And before we pivot, I want to thank our questionnaires, everybody who jumped in the podcast feedback channel this week. Weenus, Cersei, Crow, Crosby, French, Wedge, much appreciated, guys. But now we want to move on to the big show, because we are 2 weeks in to HGC here in North America. And taking a look at the standings, I had a little bit of hope after the first week, but after the second week, it kind of seems like everything has settled into where we were at the end of phase one. But what do you make, I would say specifically about everyone in the middle of the table? Because it seems like there's going to be maybe 4 teams that are going to be competing for the last 2 spots as we start to move towards the Clash phase.
So I'm assuming you're referring to Octalysis, Freedom, Endemic, and Simplicity.
Yes, the surprising Simplicity. And we were talking before the podcast about how big that Simplicity Endemic result was.
Yes. Simplicity beating Endemic has made it so Endemic has to be one of the other 4 if they're going to go. I mean, they would have had to anyway, but they now definitely have to, and then maybe even a little bit more. It's made Endemic's road to getting into that top 4 harder. Simplicity is a big question mark for me. Guys, I love that team. I love those players, and I have
so many memories.
I love the dude.
Oh yeah, Hosty, like that's the team that was created. I was like, Hosty, you're in a sea of old gods, and I wish you luck, good sir. And you know what? Like, he has surprised me. I feel like he has their respect, which is like super cool. And now seeing Tiger join up with them, like, I just adore that. I feel like he fits them really well as a support. Like, I saw that and I was just like, how did I never think of this before? I love it.
And it took a little while, especially for Tiger JK, who, again, you have to be kind of honest, was looked at like, why is this guy getting another shot? But I mean, they're clearly a team that's playing very, very well in this early part of the season.
Yeah, I'm super excited for King Caffeine too, because I talked to him at BlizzCon and he was frustrated with himself for not preparing for it, and he was ready to go all out this year.
Yeah, it's taken some time, but I think it's a little bit of a mix of a lot of different things, but they are getting some motivation, and it's like you're waiting, right? You know the potential of a team with those names. You know it's there, so you're just like, when is it time to wake up and start kicking butt again? And I hope that it's now, because I love that team. And even like, I'm just even in casting in them, like, I'm really enjoying casting their games too this phase, just because they're so much fun, and they do have that nostalgia factor behind them. You see a Tiger JK Carsey and you're like, okay, here we go. Or like Jaina, there was a Jaina flank from K1 Pro and you're like, Jaina from the side. Freaking out.
Oh man. And then for the rest of the teams in that group, Freedom looking good, and Octalysis with a difficult schedule now have to play kind of perfect. And those were, two of the teams that might have and again, Freedom struggling a little bit in phase 1, but now being successful, and then Octalysis is still trying to figure this roster out.
Yeah, I feel like Freedom is the team that I and other people who believe that hard work it can get you anywhere. Like, they work so hard, and so it was really hard to see them perform at the Western Clash how they did, and then struggle in part 2, which I didn't cast. But
I think the meta didn't fit them. I really do. It just seemed like for some reason they couldn't get on their comfort heroes a lot in phase 1.
Yeah, they agree. And they sort of role swapped, and then now they're role swapping back, and so they're still trying to figure some stuff out too. Octalysis is they're that roster that you're just like, when's it gonna click? Because I felt like it was almost like that last phase too, and it maybe happened, but just a little bit too late, because they were one game away from being the team that made it with Tempo to the mid-season brawl. So it just felt like that clicking happened a little bit too late. And now you're just wondering the same about. I agree. I feel like their schedule they had a rough week this week. Circumstances not quite ideal, but they I had to throw it in, but all jokes aside, like, it was a tough week. It was a tough week. I was hoping for maybe a little bit more of a fight versus Heroes Hearth, but I can also understand if you felt like Tempo was the one to beat and you put all your prep into that match too, which I don't know if that was the case, but I could see that being the case.
Okay. So listen, pick 2 from that group: Freedom, Endemic, Octalysis, and Simplicity. Who's going to make it?
From what I've heard, Octalysis is still a top 3 team, so I'll put Octalysis in there. The last one, I think the duration of time together should be enough for Freedom, but would not be surprised if Simplicity or Endemic were in there. I feel like Endemic played so well this week, like that one series. If they can do that in a double week, I will be convinced, because
totally different team.
Yeah, I feel like that team has always been, like, a Michael Udall's team has always been one that has trouble with a double week, keeping the consistency between both. So if they play like they did this week in 2 series, even if they lose one of the series, if they still play that hard, then I will be convinced.
So I believe we have entered the time for the lightning round.
Oh God, you dork.
All right, so it's just gonna be a few quick hitter questions. We don't need a long answer. Just hit us with the answer that you got, and hopefully you have some fun with it. So to kick it off, recently, Dreadnought, he talked about some Superman ice cream. What goes into the Gilly version of Superman ice cream?
Marshmallows, chocolate, and graham crackers, because I like s'mores.
Ooh, I'm hungry.
What is your favorite Brightwing skin, and why is it the monkey one?
No.
Thank you.
The old master skin, not the pink one. Either of the other 2.
Ballistics, Gen G, or Tempest?
Gen G.
And this one is from Jinxie Cat from Gilly Shark. What is your preferred brand of crate to stand on?
Apple box.
and a second one from her. When are you going to join them for a D&D session?
I may be closer than you realize.
Oh,
they are. By the way, they are great. They were a great addition here, and I bugged Kaimo last season, and I hope he actually starts picking up the casting here for us in season 5. So shout out to the Gilly Shark folks.
Wait, what? Kaimo might cast?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's awesome.
I had him on it. He did a great job. And I was like, are you going to do this? And he's like, hey, kind of maybe in Chair League did 1 or 2 games, and I'm going to needle him incessantly at the start of season 5. I'd like to see him pick it up.
He would be great. I would love that. That's awesome.
And to close out the lightning round, Gilly, it is up to you to give us the best Sonya leap you got.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes.
You just made a lot of people very happy.
Making waves. All right. And listen, we just once again want to extend our thanks for such a notable, illustrious, and great guest for jumping on one of our early podcasts. Gilly, how can the folks here in NGS keep an eye on you and what you are doing? Where do we find you?
Oh, okay. Well, I stream as much as I can on my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/GillyweedTV. The best way to keep up with what I'm going to be casting next or what I'm going to be doing next, event-wise, is to follow my Twitter, which is twitter.com/GillyweedTV. I have an Instagram, which is GillyweedTV as well. That's where, if you like outfit of the day posts, I post my HGC outfit of the days. I also try to keep up with my story. I've been trying to do more with that there. I also have a Facebook page, which is Gillyweed TV, and YouTube, which is Gillyweed SC2, like StarCraft 2, but those are probably the things I do the least with, though I do upload clips, highlights from my stream, that Stark highlights, so there's probably going to be good Stark plays and some good Gilly plays, maybe, if those happen, that get uploaded to that. And shout outs to Stark for keeping that alive. Thank you, my friend.
All right, guys, that does it for me. Does it do it for you as well?
Oh, I'm very happy with this interview. I think it went pretty well for number
Awesome.
2 in the interview department for us.
Yeah, Gilly, thank you so much. That was a ton of fun.
All right, so another huge thank you to Gillyweed for joining us on today's pod. What a fun time that was, and getting to chat with a dignitary like yourself was just amazing for us as a brand new pod. And I know Ghost and Bobo, you guys are thrilled to have such great guests on our show.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, it was fantastic. Gilly, you're great.
So I want to give some shout outs, announcements, so to speak. Season 5, right around the bend. The signups are currently open. They will be closing on July 22nd. So make sure you get your teams in. NexusGamingSeries.com to register. The season will kick off on August 6th, and you can expect the playoffs to start on October 1st, with them finishing the weekend of October 20th and 21st when our grand finals will take place. And it's going to be the biggest, the best, the grandest, all the words. Season 5, Nexus Gaming Series. Make sure you are a part of it.
Love to see it.
Absolutely. And that's just before BlizzCon, too.
Yeah, it's going to be wrapped up, and then we're going to be able to party at the big show.
Yeah, hype. If everyone wants to show up to that NGS BlizzCon meeting, show up. All right. Anyways, I want to recognize some teams from NGS that are making it happen out in Open Division. Everybody who competes in Open Division is awesome. Whether it's for serious points or you just want some exposure and playing some really good teams. But there are a lot of NGS teams that have been doing the Open Division Cup. So I'm going to shout out, I believe it is, where's the first one here? Okay. The first one is Team Freelo, Baja's Boys, which is previously known as, what was it?
Macro Trash, yes.
Macro Trash is now Baja's Boys. They actually took a game against one of the first round there. Texas...
And wait. Before you go on, shout out to Baja, because he's also done some casting so far.
Nice.
And that team's named after Bahamut, so.
Oh, okay. I get it now. I thought maybe it was like some kind of California thing, honestly.
No, get out. You know.
Okay, I know. I really, that's even better now. I like them so much better. Luxorian Sun went in and tried their hand at it. Team Maroon, and they in fact faced Moto, and Moto beat Team Maroon 2-0 to move on to the next round. Real Ultimate Mosh Pit.
Yes.
They went up against Boosted the first round. FWC Esports, which is formerly known as 2+2, and in fact, they've got our last podcast guest coaching them. So Cavalier Guest giving some help to FWC Esports.
Yes, we've seen we've seen a number of players actually jump in and join up on other teams as well. I mean, we've also have TNC and OSD that are competing there in the Open Div, and the other notable group of fellas is the boys on Reborn.
Yeah, saving the best for last here. Reborn, as of this recording, their match against Freebirds is tonight, so they could get themselves even more points. They took out the team. What was their?
They took out
Queen's Gambit.
Yeah.
They took out Queen's Gambit, which is made up of with Equinox joined the team, and so did Alex Itch for one night. Is it Itch or Ick? I don't know. Some league fanatic is going to tell me otherwise. So just go ahead and leave your comments in the podcast channel. We always love to hear your comments.
One more team you forgot to mention, and this is a brand new team, actually a sister team to Luxorian Sun.
Yes.
They're known as Luxorian Snake.
I didn't know that.
That's so cool.
I thought it was just
Bay State. Yeah, Bay State brought in another crew. It's a scrim partner. They're working together, and so far, so good. I'm liking what I'm seeing from Luxorian.
Right.
Oh, fantastic. That's awesome to hear. But Reborn, though, went up against Equinox,
the Ebros.
Faye, and the Ebros. So that's a formidable opponent to beat. So Reborn proving that they are the real deal here in this open division.
Shout out to Coach Crosby as well. One of our best and brightest here. Always hopping in on the NGS Discord and sharing the knowledge. We hope to hear from him soon here on the podcast. Yeah. Wink, wink.
Yeah. And good luck tonight in the past.
In the past, I guess. Yeah.
All right. Keep going. You got TAW script?
Oh, yeah. We got the TAW open signups. That's right. We got to bring this out here. Here it is. I found it. We're going to tell you about the Art of Warfare Open 2. So, the Art of Warfare is a gaming community present in over 40 games, and they'll be collaborating with the Nexus Gaming Series to host their second HOTS tournament, the TAW Open. The TAW Open is a single elimination tournament that will take place over the weekend of July 14th and 15th. These matches will be streamed through both the TAW TV and NGS channels, which you can find at twitch.tv/TAWTV, all letters, and twitch.tv/Nexus Gaming Series, all one word. Registration is based on a first-come, first-served basis, and signups have already opened, so head on over to nexusgamingseries.com, where details and the tournament.com registration link is featured on the NGS website homepage. Note, record the above as well as a quick preview message with relevant info in case podcast is to be released after registration closes.
Did you really just... Oh, God. Jax!
Disappointed!
This dude is out of control tonight.
Thank you, Ghost Dunk. That event is going to be amazing. And if you want even more off-season tournament action, be sure to tune in to the Regen Invitational. That is my organization, Regen, putting it on. And we have an outstanding cast of teams that are already registered to play, that have been invited and said, hey, Murda, I want to participate in this event. It's going to take place on July 28th, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. We're going to run through the entire bracket, looking to end by midnight on the East Coast. And we have, again, a fantastic set of teams, including Blasting Burrows, Divine 9, Jailbait, Team Maroon, Adults with Jobs, Heroes of the United States, Obscured, Bad Manners, Roll1 Esports, Team Awesome Sauce, The Blue Team, Guys Gems, Regen Blue, Team Mapitas, Arrogant Nephilim, Team Skyarch, Planet Smashers, Regen Red, the Banzo Brothers, Disturbance, and Rainbow Spectrum, among many other teams that are yet to accept their invites. I am so excited to bring this event to everyone. Last season, it was a highlight of the off-season, and I know it will be even better this time, Bobo and Ghost.
Right on, baby. I'll be there casting it.
You will. And actually, let me talk about the casters too, because I have a nice selection to choose from here, including myself and yourself, Bobo. Maybe we got a little Ghost Dunk action going too.
Depends of the day.
So we have Styx signed on to help, Ragnarok, who's a coach for Regen. We, of course, have the Great Swing and Weenus combination will be joining us, as well as everyone's favorite, Bahamut. And we're going to be joined by a fellow NGS network streamer, Gravesville, will also be joining the casting crew.
Get a little bit of gravy train going on. Love to see it. All right, guys, we will go ahead and keep everyone abreast of what's happening here as we try to promote these off-season tournaments, try to get some good signups going. And again, keep an eye on the announcements page as well. We'll go ahead and get as much info as we can out there through the NGS Discord. That'll start to wrap it up for us here. If you want to support this podcast and NGS in general, you can become a patron at patreon.com/Nexus Gaming Series. We are looking forward to podcast number 4 and 5, building up towards the upcoming season. Just to give you guys a little bit of a preview for podcast number 4, again, we're going to be bringing in a little bit of a roundtable discussion as we try to deep dive into many of the changes that we're seeing and affecting both ranked play and competitive play, triple bans, map changes, balance patches coming through, and we'll see if maybe we get a new hero thrown in there as well. We're also looking forward to bringing you guys in a little bit of a one-on-one interview and a little bit of a special treat as we look to communicate some of the back scenes going on here. We know that a lot of people have questions about placements and about how NGS goes ahead and seeds teams for the upcoming season. We're going to go ahead and bring on a very special guest for that and try to answer some of your questions, again, as we build up towards season number 4. And then for podcast number 5, we're going all out. We're going to be bringing you guys the big season 5 preview. We certainly will look to bring you some insider information as we go ahead and try to fill up our notebooks before the season starts. So keep an eye out for pods number 4 and 5. All right. I am one of your hosts, Professor Bobo. You can catch me twitch.tv/prof_Bobo. What's my Twitter handle right now? It is Prof Bobo Hots. Gentlemen, where can we catch you guys?
I'm Murda, twitch.tv/MurdaRG. You can also at me on Twitter @MurdaRG. Would love to hear your feedback on the pod. Anything HOTS related, hit me up.
And I'm Ghost Dunk. You can find me at twitch.tv/GhostDunk. And I am on Twitter @IlluminatedWax.
I want to thank you guys for listening, and we hope to catch you next time on Nexus Now.
And real quick, I just want to throw a shout out to Smithel. Smithel, once upon a time I was falling in love, but now I'm only falling apart. There's nothing I can do.
We miss you.
A total eclipse of the heart.